To order, it is 6:02 p.m. and this is the regular meeting of the Kaneland Board of Education. We'd like to inform all board meeting attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. Mr. McCauley, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and a roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Here.
Mr. Kleisner.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons.
Here. Dr. Lawler is absent.
Okay, with 6 members present, we do have a quorum. Is there anything the board would like to move from consent to new business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. The agenda is approved. It is now time for the board/superintendent salutes. Dr. Rowland.
We don't have any formal salutes this evening, but I do want to shout out a quick salute to our boys basketball team, who probably just tipped off against DePaul College Prep over at the Now Center. I want to point out that our student representative is at the game covering it
Good for
for the
her.
Crier, and that I've requested Mr. Rollman send updates, so I'll provide updates as I get those throughout the evening.
So as we'd all like to hear, myself included, if you hear an update throughout the meeting, it's just us. It's a big deal, so.
You don't have to sign up for public comment for that. You can just give the update.
Okay. Tonight's consent agenda contains the following information. Approval of parameters for accounts payable and payroll, March 2025. Approval of the treasurer's report, February 2025. Approval of the minutes of the February 24, 2025 regular meeting. Approval of personnel. Approval of destruction of audio recordings from the closed session meetings from September 2023, excuse me. Approval of energy purchasing consultant. Approval of the 2025-2026 IHSA membership. Approval of the 2025-2026 IESA membership for Harder Middle School. And approval of the Board of Education Arts Award. And the following informational items. Student suspension data report, the Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA report, and that's it. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent items as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, please.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
With 6-0, the consent agenda is approved. Okay, it's now time for public comment. We use the public comment section as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. The board does not debate or engage in conversation during this time. I'd like to remind everyone to state your name and village of residence for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Public comment is a maximum of 30 minutes with a 20-minute total length of time for any one subject. Those who speak are asked to maintain a tone of courtesy and civility. And up first, we will call Audrey Worth.
Hello, my name is Audrey Worth. I'm a parent of 2 children in our school district. I would like to emphasize why our community should vote yes for the referendum that is currently on the ballot. Remember the referendum? This one is different than the previous referendum. There's no property tax increase for the schools. The district is simply restructuring their bonds, which are loans, at the same rate to get the funds needed for the projects. There is really great information about the referendum online at www.kaneland.org/referendum. There you can click on finance plans. The website also has construction plans, financial breakdowns for the projects, presentations, videos, and more. There's also a recorded virtual town hall meeting and various tours of the buildings. The new leadership at Kaneland is being as transparent as possible, and we should take full advantage of the information that they have made available to us. If you have not already, please attend a referendum town hall. Go and ask all your questions directly to our superintendent, Dr. Kurt Rollwing. The last in-person town hall is this Wednesday at the Elburn Town Hall building at 6 p.m. The last virtual town hall is on Monday, March 24th, and you can join that one from home. Yes, you can ask questions at the virtual one, and no, you don't have to have your camera on. You simply just type your question and it will be answered. Next, I want to highly encourage all members of the community to attend a scheduled tour of the high school facilities. In fact, there's one tomorrow. Just meet in the library at 5 p.m. There are also tours on Monday, March 17th and Saturday, March 29th. Next, please go on Facebook and find the page Kaneland Yes. Like and follow the page and request one of these free yard signs. We have volunteers who will come and deliver these directly to your yard so you can show your support publicly that you're going to vote yes for Kaneland. So a lot of people have asked, how can we help? You can help by talking to your friends and neighbors about why this matters to you. Personal conversations do matter. People are more likely to vote when they hear the facts from someone they know and trust. You can also share on your personal social media page. We need to reach all voters, including voters who do not have school-aged children. I think everyone listening right now can think of several neighbors or friends who live in Kaneland and need to hear the good news about this referendum. Please be the messenger. Every vote counts. Did you know that the referendum is supported by teachers at the Kaneland Education Association, or KEA? It has also received public support from Kaneland Travel Baseball, Kaneland Feeder Basketball, and Kaneland Youth Football League. The support from these organizations speaks volumes about the plan that has been put on the ballot. Finally, I want to remind voters that Election Day is April 1st, which falls on Kaneland's spring break. So we really need to emphasize early voting. Please spread the word and remind your friends and neighbors to vote early and vote yes. You can vote yes early now at the Kane County Clerk's Office in Geneva or at the Aurora satellite location. Early voting information is on the Kane County Clerk's website. Early voting at more widespread voting locations will begin on March 17th. Now you'll be hearing from a few Kaneland students who would like to share how the referendum will impact them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, we have Jack Worth.
Good evening. My name is Jack Worth. I'm a 6th grader at Harder Middle School. Although I cannot vote, I can ask you adults to please vote yes for the Kaneland School referendum. One reason I would like the referendum to pass is because it will move the buses to Harder Middle School. I ride the bus, and this will improve our bus routes. Another reason is because I play sports. Even though I'm not in high school yet, I do sometimes have practices there now. There usually isn't a spot for us to practice until later in the evening. If we had a field house, there would be more places to practice, and I might be able to get more sleep on school nights. This year was my first year in middle school, and my favorite class was Industrial Arts with Mr. Lavorsi. If the referendum passes, it will add career tech education spaces to the high school. I would really like to be able to learn there when I am older. A very important reason I want the referendum to pass is because it will make high school much safer. It will keep visitors in one area during the school day. I always want to be safe when I'm at school. There will also add a hallway that makes the hallways less crowded and easier for teachers to supervise and keep everyone safe. Finally, I know that if I go to school that has modern, safe, and comfortable classrooms and labs, I will be better prepared for college. The changes will mostly be completed when I am entering high school in 2027. Please vote yes for me and all the students in Kaneland. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, we have Charlie Worth.
Hi, my name is Charlie Worth. I am in 3rd grade at Blackberry Creek Elementary School. I want the Kaneland referendum to pass for many reasons. First of all, it would add air conditioning to the gym at my school. When I go to PE class in the fall and spring, it can be super hot and we all sweat a lot. Another reason is because the referendum would update the playgrounds at all of the Kaneland elementary schools. We use the playground every day during recess. The referendum would also get new carpeting at my school. You probably don't know this about me, but I'm a football player, and this year my team was the first KYFL team to win the Super Bowl. There are a lot of people who love to watch our team, and when we get to high school, we want to play at a nice stadium with a turf field. The referendum will also add lots of seats there. I want my family to be able to watch me when it's my turn to play football in high school. I hope the adults in Kaneland vote yes for the referendum. Go Knights.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, we have Blake Dittmar.
Hello everyone, my name is Blake Dittmar and I'm in 6th grade at Harder Middle School. I'm really excited to be here tonight and talk about something that is very important to me and a lot of my friends, improving our school's athletic facilities and learning spaces. First, I want to talk about the learning spaces. I hope to go to the University of Michigan one day, and to get there I know I need strong education. Right now, our classrooms could use some updates. More modern classrooms with better technology and space would help us focus and make learning easier if we had better spaces. I know I and everyone else could do even better in school. As a student athlete, I also know our sports facilities need some work. A new field house and stadium would make a huge difference for the players and the fans. It would make practices and games more fun and help us play our best. Plus, it would give everyone, including our fans, a place to get excited and cheer us on. I believe that with the better learning spaces and sports facilities, we'd all have a better chance to succeed, whether it's in the classroom or on the field. So I ask for you to support this referendum and help make our school even better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next up, Hunter Diamore.
Hello, my name is Hunter Diamore. I am a student athlete here at Kaneland. As I've been here since kindergarten, I'm currently in 7th grade at Harder Middle School. I play football for KYFL, basketball for the Cagers, and play baseball for KTB. And I am proud to say that they all support this referendum, and thank you to all three organizations for their continued support. I really hope that the Kaneland referendum goes through so that our students have better athletic facilities as well as better learning environments and good updates to improve academics. This would also benefit our teachers and staff. It would be great to not only have better developments and a better future for students, but also to have the ability to grow stronger and smarter as a Knight in the process. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a good rest of your evening, and I'm proud to be a Knight. Go Knights.
Thank you for your comments. That's the last of who signed up for this first round of public comment. So,
Can I jump in? Is that right?
yeah, we're short, so go ahead.
Public service announcement, we aren't winning the game yet. Okay, now you can do my 3 minutes. Sheila Albano from Elburn, and I wore my cross-country shirt tonight because one of the mottos in a recent year for cross-country has been one team, one family. Our track team every year has OGT, one great team, and I'm hoping to speak to everyone out there in the netherworld and here in the room. I hope you will join us to be one great team and one family, extended with all of its roughness and craziness and disagreements and arguments and love and pulling that large extended families have everywhere. We are not always going to agree. We are not always going to maybe even like each other at times. But Kaneland as a whole in this monstrous district has always at the end of the day turned out for their kids. And we want to make, as our superintendent has been telling them in all of the town hall meetings, we want to make Kaneland the center of this enormous community so that everybody wants to come out, not just for the sports, but for the art shows and the concerts and the DECA presentations or anything that at the middle school, all everywhere. I 3 generations through this school at this point in time, and if we win tonight and go to state for the first time since I was a sophomore, you're probably going to hear some yelling, so I'm going to be prepared. We don't really know. We can't tell what is going on out in our district. We give a pretty good feeling, but we really don't know. So we are continuing. Anybody, if you have questions, if you know people who have questions, because we've had a lot of people come to us and say, hey, this is what we're hearing. It is our job to get to you, to reach out, to take information that we have. There will not be any pressure because there's going to be people who don't want to vote for this, and that's okay. I have no intention ever of pushing anybody in a direction they don't want to go. However, lots of them don't have the full information, and I do want you to have full information on what you're actually voting for. So Audrey is also part of the Yes Committee. You can find everything you need, really, on kaneland.org/referendum. Mr. Chavez has done a phenomenal job, and Jackie and our superintendent, Mr. Rollwing. But we also have information on Kaneland Yes on Facebook. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions and if you would like a sign for your yard. Thank you. Oh, what? Vote early, yes. If you're not going to be here for spring break on April 1st, please vote early.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, we will now proceed to new business. The first item of new business is a public hearing and approval of driver's education fees. As a reminder, I'll open the public hearing and ask Dr. Bogan to provide a summary and then open for public comments. Afterwards, I will close the public hearing and the board will discuss the vote. So just as a reminder, we won't engage in conversation until we've heard and we've had time to allow the public to come and speak for the public hearing on this topic. So it is now 6:19 p.m. and I will open the public hearing to discuss the approval of the driver's education fees. Dr. Bogan.
Yes, so just to give some background, Illinois state law allows school districts to charge $50 for driver education, and if they go beyond that, up to the $250 limit, they need to hold a public hearing. So Kaneland School District has charged the full $250 fee for driver's ed for many years, and so we are asking tonight to continue to do that. If we look back at the 23-24 school year, the district did collect just over $62,000 in total revenue. That is both from fees and also in state reimbursement costs. However, the program's total expenditure was just over $376,000. So the fee that we're charging is a very small offset for the total cost of the program. We do, even with the $250 fee, we do have waivers in place. So any student who is eligible under the free and reduced lunch program is exempt from this fee, just like any other in the district. But that is what we are proposing tonight, to continue with the $250 fee for the upcoming school year.
Thank you. At this time, we'll invite the public to make any comments on the driver's education fees, keeping in mind the guidelines stated earlier in the meeting regarding public comment. Once. Twice. Okay. Hearing no further comments, I will close the public hearing at 6:21 p.m. I will now open the discussion amongst the board on the approval of the driver's education fees.
So for the over expenditure, the $314,000, that comes out of just the regular operating cost?
Yep, that's correct.
And what's it cost to do private driver's ed these days?
Significantly more. It's probably 3 times.
Yeah. It was cool. My daughter did it last year and then got her license this fall. She took her test through the school. And so basically when she turned 16, all she had to do was show up at the DMV with all of her paperwork and her test and signed off. And she just gave her license, no additional fees even at that point. So, yeah.
Additional comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the attached resolution to maintain the 2025-2026 driver's education fee for Kaneland High School at $250 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Mankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner?
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons?
Aye.
Mr. Kleckner?
Aye.
Okay, 6-0, the driver's education fee is approved. The second item of new business is the public hearing regarding the proposed reduction in force / honorable dismissal. Dr. Rowling will provide more information.
Sure, I'm actually gonna turn this over to Dr. Atkins, who will provide the background.
Thank you. As the board knows, we did have to make some difficult decisions this year with programmatic cuts. Those programmatic cuts did result in a reduction in force of certified staff members. Under the law, if a reduction in force of certified staff members exceeds 150% of the prior year's RIF, we need to hold a public hearing to allow any member of the public to discuss or speak to that reduction in force. In here, you'll see in the memo for this hearing, we explained the school code, some of the numbers involved with the reduction in force. There will be a separate resolution on a different board action item tonight, so we'll have some more information about that for you at that time. So there's no approval needed for this. This is just an opportunity for the public to speak to the reduction in force if they so chose. So we do have 18 staff members that will be reduced in force. Some of those, the FTE amount is less than that because some of those staff members are part-time. There are recall rights for 3 of the affected RIF certified staff members. And then the final thing that I'd want the board to remember is that this is what's called under the law an honorable reduction in force. So these are staff members that have done nothing evaluative. There's no performance issue. This is just the confluence of budget and timing, and thus the reduction in force. So it is honorable. They're great people, and we thank them for their service to our Kaneland students.
Okay. So at this time, it is now 6:24 p.m., and I'm calling the public hearing on the proposed reduction in force / honorable dismissal. So we'll invite the public to make any comments on the proposed reduction in force / honorable dismissal, keeping in mind the guidelines stated previously. Going once, twice. Okay, hearing no further comments, I will close the public hearing at that same 6:24 p.m. I'll now open the discussion amongst the board on the proposed reduction in force / honorable dismissal. Questions, comments? Okay. Well, there's no action on this topic for the proposed reduction. Thank you, Dr. Atkins. There's no action at this time for proposed reduction in force / honorable dismissal as it will be addressed in future topic. The third item of new business is the presentation on the Kaneland High School Facilities Assessment. Dr. Rowling?
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick score pause. I did get an update at the end of the first quarter, so it's been a little bit, but we were down 21-3 at that time. So hopefully we turn the tables a little bit. But I will turn this actually over to Dr. Bogan, who will introduce Allied Facility Partners.
Yes. So earlier this year, as part of referendum planning and facility planning, we engaged Allied Facility Partners to do a facility assessment. It was primarily focused on Kaneland High School, but did also include other buildings and other items that were included in the referendum. And so tonight we actually have Doug McMahon, the CEO of Allied Facility Partners, here to present. So I'll call you up here. We have a clicker for you. But he is going to go through the current conditions of facilities, recommended upgrades, role of geothermal, LED lighting, and improving efficiency. He'll talk about some cost estimates, potential savings from various improvements, also financial considerations both with and without the referendum. So I will turn this over to Mr. McMahon.
Thank you very much. With me tonight is Alex Kunkel and Jonathan Artsma. They're 2 of the team of 8 that we actually had involved in this process, so it's very thorough. One of the challenges that I think a lot of districts face when they're trying to pass a referendum is a lot of the budgeting that gets put together is historically done through an architectural firm. And a lot of that budgeting is done on square foot basis and things like that. And if you've ever built a home, if you said, hey, we're gonna build a 3,000 square foot house, what's it gonna cost? There's so many factors that go into that can impact it. And so unfortunately what tends to happen is budgets get put together that are wildly inaccurate because all the details haven't really gone through it. So that's part of what we do. We actually go through, we bring contractors in. When we looked at the mechanical systems of this building, Alex, who's got 40 plus years experience installing every kind of mechanical system you can imagine, he was leading that effort. So we looked at each piece of the project exactly how you would normally bid it once you had plans and specifications, as opposed to trying to chunk things into square foot pricing. Mark, by the way, was incredible, helpful in getting us information, walking our teams through. Thank you so much for that. So as we started going through the various pieces here, we did primarily focus on the high school, but we looked at, is this how I control the clicker thing here? No, strike.
It might need to be turned on. There's like a,
Is it? Oh, that would be great.
this is where I shine. There you
Awesome.
go. No. There we go.
Okay. So as we were going through looking at all these different components, we obviously looked at the referendum and the scopes of work that were laid out there. I will say that we kind of went a little bit above some of those items. So we included some windows that were not part of it. We included more parking lots than what was initially thought of. But the way that we were looking at the spaces, so if you had interior spaces that had, it would say renovate this space. What we did, instead of just putting a big cost per square foot for that space, is we looked at the floors as part of the rest of the flooring that we looked at for the entire building. We looked at the ceiling tiles, the lights, electrical, mechanical, all of those things were actually factored in throughout the building. So now the only pieces you're talking about for the renovation of those spaces are demoing walls, building some new walls, or you know, how you're gonna, you know, casework, which we even have casework accounted for in here. So we were really, it's as detailed as you can get without having final construction drawings. The other thing that was a big deal was looking at learning environment, and part of that deals with the mechanical system. So there's a fair portion of it that we were able to figure out ways to utilize a geothermal solution, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. But the impact, and this is usually missed in a lot of these conversations, when people talk about a learning environment, there are, obviously you want the curriculum to be great, you want fantastic teachers, but that environment, and what this means is the ventilation. So what this impacts is the level of CO2 that's in a classroom. The higher level the CO2 is, the less oxygen it is. So this impacts student learning. Noise from ventilation is another major factor. The lighting that is in classrooms, especially if they're fluorescent lights actually have a strobing effect to them. Causes headaches, there's a lot of other negatives to it. Plus the, I don't know if you've heard of the temperature of a light. So temperature deals with kelvins, and what you'll find is this particular, or that aspect of it impacts circadian rhythm within an individual. What's interesting is all this stuff is, I mean, it's biology. I mean, it's not, you know, crazy science, it's real stuff. So the circadian rhythm actually gets messed up when you're in classrooms that have levels like at 3,500, which is pretty normal. So by replacing those lights with LED lights and increasing the temperature of those lights, which makes it appear more white, you're actually creating an environment that keeps students more alert. These are actually used in special education spaces as well. If you've ever seen blue felt above a light or on a light, you go with a higher Kelvin. They use tunable lights a lot for those, but it allows you to adjust that. So now you've got lighting, you have CO2, you have ventilation. These are things that if you dial them in, the biggest study that I've ever seen, and I was telling Mark this earlier, I was a psych major in college, so I dig into these case study stuff, and most people get bored with it. I like it. But the largest study I've ever seen that took those components and optimized them in a classroom increased the learning progression for those students by 20%. So regardless of the curriculum, regardless of how great the teachers are in that room, if you can get those things dialed in, you actually improve the learning. And again, it's fact. So a lot of people look at these types of things and go, well, you're just making it prettier, you're just, I didn't have air conditioning when I was in school, who needs it? It's huge. It is very, very impactful. So those are some of the things that we did look at. Let's see if I get this right. There you go. The aesthetics thing is kind of neat. In Vegas, they put the crazy carpet down. You know why? So they don't want you looking down. They want you looking up into the stuff. So anyway, there's all kinds of tricks. There's the list of all the things that we actually evaluated as we went through this process. Geothermal and lighting, while it costs a little bit more money in your initial installation of it, what's nice is because parking lots are part of this project, the geothermal well field would be actually underneath the parking lot. So you're not spending extra money to tear it up and put a new parking lot down. It's happening anyway, so you get that benefit. But right now, there's a federal, it used to be a privately held tax credit that if you didn't pay taxes, you couldn't benefit. That changed a few years ago, and it's now became something that school districts can benefit from. And this impacted things like solar and geothermal. And we did a project in the Quad Cities on a small school district, and I think the entire project was $7 million. And that's not just we actually did 2 additions. The actual increase in cost for the geothermal was about $1.5 million. Because of how the program is structured, we were able to submit with the school district. They were able to get $1 million back from the government, and it's a check. It's not, obviously you're not paying taxes, so it doesn't impact that. So you get a big rebate that used to not be available to you. The other benefit is the energy savings associated with geothermal. And there are some constructability issues that we would still need to evaluate a little bit to see if there's ways to get even more geothermal throughout the building. But the energy savings is huge. And so the cost difference of geothermal is actually offset immediately by the rebate alone. Not to mention the energy savings that you're now going to get as a benefit from this. Same thing with the lighting. There's some significant lighting rebates that are available. And because you're going to an LED light, now you're not spending the time and the maintenance on replacing those light bulbs. So you're getting some of that savings, plus the energy consumption is far, far less. All of this also gets incorporated into things like building automation systems where you're able to control the ventilation levels in areas more effectively, more efficiently. So for example, a gym, a lot of times the way they're designed, you're ventilating that gym like it's full. Well, it's not full most of the time. So you're able to do things like demand control that actually pick up the CO2 levels within the space and then adjust the ventilation to accommodate for the number of people that are in that space. Again, huge savings. So a lot of this stuff is not just going to improve that learning environment, it's going to save you money down the road. Actually, immediately save you money. But you could tell from that list that we went through tons of stuff. Now, some of the things that were a little bit more difficult, things like the field house or structures that don't really have a design yet, those were a little tougher for us to estimate, but we still did that as well. And the good news is, which is, I mean, this is great news, that the budget that you had, that had been put together, I believe Wold did it. They did a good job. Or Luck, one or the other, but it works. It's a good number. And to me, that's a big deal. I know there's a school district that just passed a $30 million referendum, and they didn't go through a process like you've gone through. And now that they are going through it, they found out that the cost is closer to $38 million. So you don't have to worry about that. I say that with the only caveat being I have no idea what the whole tariff thing is going to do, but we've even talked through with Doctor on the idea that if you're able to pass a referendum, what are some strategies to lock in numbers? And it could be things like pre-purchasing equipment before you even have to install it. That way you have the equipment. You're not worried about a 20% increase or 25% increase on some of that. Mechanical is going to be the place that it gets hit the most because of the steel component of it. So these are all the little things that we've looked at, and I already kind of talked a little bit about the rebates and energy. But Dr. Rowling gave me a 10-minute cap, so I'll stop now. You know, which is good for me. But I'm happy to answer questions, and I've got these two gentlemen here to assist me.
I'm just curious because I hear a lot about the boilers. If the referendum does go through, I mean, we've always had the number of like 250,000 per boiler. I mean, from what you've seen and what I see, and I'm not an expert in it, what is your estimate of that cost? What is the time frame for something for that to come in if we have an emergency in the winter? And again, this is, if the referendum does go through, how bad is it back there?
Well, I can tell you that the lead time on large equipment right now is 26 to 30 weeks.
So if the referendum did not pass, we had an emergency breakdown in the winter, that would be a major issue.
It would be major. That is correct.
I mean, having examined it, what is the life span on that? What's left? I mean, is it on spitting dust right now? I mean, where's that at?
Well, Alex, you had a better eyes on the boilers, so.
For the boilers, like what is the life of those?
Yeah, sir, do you mind if you come up to them? Only because people are.
Yeah.
You're on the hot seat now.
Now I look short.
People are gonna do the microphone. All right. I can do that.
Yeah, I don't think they're in great shape, but.
Yeah, so your, I think it's a 1958 boiler. That one's pretty far down the road, so I mean, it could, you know, anything catastrophic with that could happen at any time. And it desperately needs to be replaced. It's an energy hog. The other two boilers, which are, what, 2003? The other two boilers, 2003, they're in pretty good shape, but again, they're energy hogs. And they're due to be replaced. You know, lifespan is about 20 years that you're looking at. You got the one that's the 1958, which is like the Titanic in your mechanical room. So, but both are really in need of replacement. You know, you don't want to get yourself in that position where you have to shut the school down because you had a catastrophic event happen where the boilers failed. But that big one would probably be my focus.
What would you estimate the cost? I mean, is 250,000 a good estimate to replace that?
Plus, yeah.
Plus, and then, yeah.
The problem when you hear estimates is what they're doing is they're looking at just the piece of equipment. And a lot of times what they don't factor in is the demolition of the existing, the building automation or controls that have to go with it, the electrical that has to go with it, and then you've got engineering costs and all this. I mean, really by the time you're done, that $250,000 boiler is more like $400,000. So that's part of the challenge with it too.
So in this process too, are you looking to replacing all of them? Is that, and that's,
yeah.
You did say 20 years, and that's a 2002, 3. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So you're gutting it all out.
Yeah, we're doing boilers, pumps. You know, we're gonna rebuild the mechanical room basically. There's some components that will stay because some components just don't wear out. But we were careful to pay attention to those components. And in our budget pricing, we tried to budget, you know, what's needed, you know, not things that aren't needed. And there are some components that just, you know, they just last forever. There's no need to go through and replace those. So we try to be responsible with your money.
So if a project starts like this summer, you're talking not until maybe early spring by the time you get the equipment, or if you order that, so.
We could probably, I mean, as Doug said, you know, when you talk to a vendor, it's, you know, you're 20 weeks plus out. But once you place the order, you get in line, those usually get a little bit better, but, you know, it's a roll of the dice. You just don't know until you place the order. It could be 20 weeks, it could be 10 weeks. You got to get in line.
But it's like dire need to get that replaced this year.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I mean, it's to his point, it's, I mean, you're kind of rolling the dice every year. And I think the other piece is to put some redundancy with those, so you're not, it allows you to operate boilers more efficiently when you have multiple that are smaller, which is great, but you also have that redundancy that's now built in that you didn't have before. And we do, I will tell you, we are, used to be a joke at our house, because it's like every time we would call an HVAC company, you can almost count on something, you know, it's time to replace it. You know, that seemed to be the message you always got back. We don't approach it like that. We really do try to find opportunity. I don't think there's a school district, maybe there's one or two, in the state of Illinois that has more money than they need. So you're always trying to optimize your dollars. So how do you not waste money? And that was one of the kind of the marching orders that we received, even when it talked about windows, was look at the windows, see where these things need to be actually replaced, because they're in horrible shape, not just fluffy stuff, but stuff that needs to happen. So that was part of it.
And as far as like the other elementary schools, the HVAC systems are decent, besides like Blackberry Creek needing AC?
Yeah, we didn't.
Or did you just do the high school?
Yeah, we really focused on the high school. Okay. Obviously, we'd be happy to do that as well and to look at those, but since that wasn't a primary component of the referendum, and I mean, there's still some things that are happening at those schools as well, of course, but we didn't go through it in the same level of detail that we did with the high school.
Concerning the geothermal, I have two questions. Number one, I think last time we spoke, we didn't even know if we were eligible based on.
We didn't know if it would be a good fit. Like, my understanding is it's not easy to retrofit every building for geothermal, and so that was part of the investigation that Allied did.
You need to determine that it would be feasible for us to proceed in that
Not
direction?
the entire, so it's a little bit of a complicated answer, because there's definitely a lot, you know, there's parts of the building that would be very, very difficult to change to geothermal. You don't have to have just a geothermal system. So there are parts of the school that are much tougher to get to. The question starts to become, as you start to dive into it, what is the additional cost of making it happen there versus what's the rebate that you can get and what's the energy savings associated with it. So it gets a little bit more complicated as we dig into it, but we did really investigate the areas that we felt were made the most sense, and even stretch that a little bit. But the next step would be ultimately to really dive into it a little bit more deeper and start running those numbers and providing that back to you.
My second question is, what are the long-term costs of maintenance for that geothermal solution? If, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, something needed to be fixed, is it complicated? Me knowing nothing about geothermal energy.
He's probably just itching right now behind me.
Is it something that we can do in-house, or?
Well, what I would tell you is I do have geothermal in my house. I've had it there for 30 years, probably 32 years now, and I've had really good luck with it. In fact, I just changed my geothermal heat pump out last spring, and it was a Climate Master, and it lasted me a long time. The maintenance on those geothermal heat pump systems, they're water cooled, it's really low. I mean, you just don't have much issue with them, because anything that's water cooled, like a piece of equipment like that, is it just holds up better. It's kind of like, I always equate it to your car. You know, your car, if you ever had motorcycles that were air cooled were they were always junk. Anything that was water cooled was usually pretty good. And that's kind of the way the mechanical system is for a heat pump system, is if you can get it water cooled, it's just so much easier on your equipment. It lasts longer, low maintenance. You're going around changing filters still, but it's a good solid system that I believe in, and I've put in several of them, and the schools that I've put them in, been real happy with them. I mean, no complaints, good energy savings, low maintenance, and the benefit of a geothermal system is the well filled. That's kind of like a what you might call like a cooling tower, or like a chilled water system where you have chillers and stuff. The geothermal well fill will last 70, 80, 100 years maybe. Who knows? Nobody knows yet really, but it's there forever. So when your system starts to fail and you've got all these water-cooled heat pumps all over the place, because equipment doesn't last forever, but let's just say 30 years down the road, you say, oh, it's time to change those heat pumps out. You're going to change the pumps in the mechanical room, you're going to change the heat pumps in the ceilings, but that's going to be it. You're not going to go through and change a bunch of piping and go through all the things that you go through with a typical 4-pipe, chilled water, heating hot water system. It's going to be plug and play for you. So
Is it safe to say at a macro level it would be cheaper to invest in the geothermal over the long term, or over a traditional heating system?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We did one in McHenry High School, actually. Their East Campus, it was all electric, and they wanted to go to geothermal there. And actually, it's under the parking lot there as well. And I will tell you that the facility director there, his background is mechanical. That's kind of what he came from. He loves it. And their energy savings actually far exceeded even what was predicted, which is nice.
He's thrilled with it.
Yeah, he is.
He loves it. Yeah, but like anything, I mean, it's like buying a Tesla or buying any other kind of car that's, any kind of renewable energy, there's always a premium with a payback, but the payback is there. It just takes a little bit, to let it pay for itself. There's usually always a premium associated with these kinds of systems, but the long term is, man, there's big payback on it.
Well, the tax credit, though, is what's been, I don't know why I called it a tax credit. Obviously, it's not exactly that for you. It has made things like solar, things like geothermal, a very easy financial decision. And we ran savings based on what we have zero doubt you would get, which is about 40% of the cost of the geothermal. And what's nice is the cost of the geothermal is not as simple as just the well field. It is all the components with the equipment. It is, I think you even got ductwork impacted in it when we did it at Silvis. But based on the demographic, there is the potential. This program changes a little bit. It could even be 50%. But the calculations we ran, we wanted to be conservative, so we kept that at 40.
So as far as the credit was concerned, if the referendum passes, we go forward with this, we're going to get a credit back on that once it's installed and everything's good to go. That check, would that just go back into the general fund, or does that have to go back to an actual project with regards to the referendum, because that's where the money originally came from? Does it go back into paying down the referendum? How does that side of it work?
So I guess broadly, if the cost of the project was less than we had anticipated, so if we come in under 140 million that we had asked for in the referendum, that money would be abated back to the community because it was for the project.
Okay.
I need to find out the credit where that would go, right? So I don't want to say, oh, the credit is going to bond and interest, or would it be an operating because it's for future savings?
It is something that the district has the flexibility with. It's kind of like energy savings in that sense, but it's a rebate. back from the government. So it ends up being up to how the district thinks it works best for you.
Questions, comments?
Anything else? Okay.
No? Thank you, gentlemen, appreciate it.
And
Thank you.
I do want to share with the board as well. So Allied, this was a very short presentation, sort of a high-level overview, but Doug and his team put together an extensive report that we will be sharing with the board and then also be posting publicly on our website, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for the opportunity.
Okay, there's no action at this time for the high school facility assessment. The fourth item of new business is the approval of resolutions authorizing reduction in force and honorable dismissal of tenured and non-tenured teachers. Dr. Rowland.
Again, I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Atkins.
Thank you. So we just had our hearing about this, and so now we get into a couple more particulars. Under Illinois law, a reduction in force requires we use what's called the sequence of honorable dismissal, the SOD list. The SOD list categorizes staff into one of four groups. Group 1 being first-year teachers and part-time teachers. Group 2 being teachers whose average performance evaluation rating needs improvement. And Group 3 would be teachers whose average performance rating is proficient. And Group 4 is distinguished. Within Groups 2, 3, and 4, staff are ranked by their length of continuous service, their seniority. And then as we make programmatic reductions, if we remove FTE from a program, an affected staff member would have rights under the sequence of honorable dismissal for positions for which they're certified based on group and then seniority. So it becomes a very complicated task to put in, as we've done in the district this year, a series of reductions or programmatic cuts into a complicated process and formula to then result in the individuals affected by the reduction in force. I did want to thank our administrative team and our union leadership for working very extensively with me over the last months to get this prepared for the Board of Education. It is a lot of work. There was a lot of communication with individual staff members. We had a variety of informational meetings with the association leadership to make sure that all the staff affected knew their rights, knew what the process was, knew what to expect from this. After the board approves this resolution tonight, staff members will get a letter signed by the board president tomorrow morning via hand delivery from the principal. They will also get it in U.S. mail and U.S. certified mail, so they'll have to sign for it. So the law requires we send them notification 3 different times. It's important to know some frequently asked questions about a reduction in force. We are on a year-round pay schedule for our staff, so these affected staff will get paid through August 31st, which is the end of our fiscal year for staff, for teachers. They'll also be benefits eligible until the 31st of August. We are working with all of our affected staff with job placement, with referrals, letters of recommendation, those kinds of things to help make sure that they land on their feet. And we've advised them all as to how to best communicate with us as they go through that process, so that should they have the opportunity to go to a different district, they can communicate with us, and hopefully were we to be in a position to rehire, we want them to know that so that they have that choice. Of the affected certified staff that are being reduced, there are 3 that have recall under the law. They are in Group 3. So they would have recall rights, but our first-year teachers do not have recall rights. However, Dr. Rowling and I have assured the association that should we be in need of additional staff next year, I don't know, an additional elementary classroom or something like that, we would go back to that pool of displaced staff to hire. Even though there's no recall right allowed for under the law or the school code, we feel that's the right thing to do for our people. So we would do that. And then, like I mentioned before, and I'll continue to mention, this is an honorable reduction in force. So there, to be abundantly clear, there's no performance issue or evaluation issue with these staff. It is simply just that reduction impacts them under the law. So before you have 2 resolutions. one being for our staff that are being reduced in full. On that list, there's one part-time staff member who's being reduced in full. The second series of the second resolution is for two of our part-time staff that are going to be going from part-time to what's called lesser part-time. So it is still technically a reduction in force, but they're not, those last two staff members will be here next year. They will just be here less part-time than they are currently. So again, we've communicated with all these staff. They know what to expect. They know how we're going to operate moving through the spring and the summer should there be an opportunity to return to the district. And we're here to ask for your approval of these two resolutions.
So procedurally, I'll be asking for one motion that'll cover both those resolutions, is that correct?
The one motion covers both resolutions.
Okay. Questions, comments?
No, I mean, the only comment is, you know, this is really tough. I know from your perspective, for the rest of the administration, I know it was really tough on us as a board, that, you know, we're in this position and we had to make some of these very, very difficult decisions. I know that everybody did their best to figure out what can stay, what can go, how do we manage this. I know there's proper, you know, procedure for you to walk through all this too. It doesn't make it any easier. I know from our perspective, you know, losing any teachers from our district is really, really tough. It's tough for us. I know it's tough for the students as well, other staff members that they become friends with. And I do really appreciate the fact that even though most of these teachers do not have the recall rights, but they are going to be the first ones we'll look to, you know, when or hopefully when more staff positions open back up, or however we, you know, meander through the next couple of years with our budgets and everything else like that. But I did want to, you know, comment that this has been really, really tough for all of us, and it's very taxing. And you know, I know it's a burden on all of our minds and our hearts too. So, and none of this was done lightly.
Thank you. I echo those comments, by the way. I can't say it better. Okay, hearing no further comment. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve resolutions authorizing reduction in force and honorable dismissal of tenured and non-tenured teachers.
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Mankowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. The resolution for reduction in force and honorable dismissal of tenured and non-tenured teachers is approved. Okay, the fifth item of new business is the minimum staffing plan for 2025-2026. Dr. Rolling / Dr. Atkins, if you could provide more information.
Yes, so Dr. Atkins is going to provide, as he has every year, a minimum staffing plan based on current conditions. So.
Excellent. So thank you. And remember, a couple of overarching components. This is the minimum staffing plan. So one of the first questions that I want to preemptively answer is what happens if we get more kids here? What happens if we have to open up another program there? We would bring those back in successive board meetings as a new business item to discuss with the board and get approval of. Okay? Embedded within this minimum staffing plan, additionally, there are those things that are registration and enrollment based. There's also those things that are school code based. And so as we've talked with the board in the past, there are things that we may want to do or prefer to do or choose to do, and then there's also things that we have to do. And so both of those elements are embedded into this minimum staffing plan as we go along. I did want to thank again our administration and our association leadership for being that sounding board, providing input, helping us navigate all the various aspects of how this will work. There's a lot of data collection, there's a lot of conversation, and there's a lot of strategy that goes behind a minimum staffing plan. As we go through this, remember, we do have guidelines with the association that we utilize when we look at class sizes. New this year, after our successful negotiations with the Kaneland Education Associations, we also look at specific class composition. So that was a new item in our contract where not only are we looking at the raw numbers of kids, but we're also looking at the needs of the students in various cohorts to make sure that should we have a very a cohort with a lot of needs, that they might actually then get additional supports as well. So we did factor that in. Remember that increases with enrollment doesn't happen in nice clean pockets. So we may get 10 second graders, but across 4 buildings that may not be enough in any one specific place to justify an increase. The other thing to know is that when you're looking at sections at the elementary level and you're looking at in K2 that 21, 22, or in the 3-5 that 22 to 24, if you're looking at those numbers and you get 2 or 3 more students in a grade level at a building, that may put us at 25 in one class, but that's not enough to justify the additional FTE, because if you divide by that next full teacher, now you're looking at class sizes of 14 or 15, which would be too far the other end. So there is about a 12 student swing for some of our class sizes in terms of when we would bring back a request for an additional FTE. We do go throughout the spring looking at our enrollment. Every year in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I'm going to sit down with our 12-month secretaries at all the buildings and give them a running enrollment document that when students register, we update. We review that every Thursday between now and the start of school in August. So again, should we have a need to add staff, we would bring that back. When we look at where we're standing so far this year, right now, today, we have 380.93 FTE in the district, and next year we're projecting to need 356 FTE. So there is that reduction that's representative of the programmatic changes we talked about. We talked about enrollment coming in pockets. With Fox Valley Kindergarten and Early Childhood, those are still tentative enrollments, but what we do is we use a 10-year look back to give us a percentage of growth each year. And so I worked with Dr. Bogan with our kindergarten registration to apply that number. We've been pretty on target over the last couple of years with that. So although enrollment for kindergarten and early childhood isn't fully completed yet, we do have a very good picture of what it will look like, and this minimum staffing plan accommodates for that. Enrollment is going to be going down at the elementary. We'll see a slight increase at the middle school. We'll see a slight decrease at the high school. And then Kipla is going to be projected to stay pretty static at about 98 students. When we look out a handful of years, I know we talked about enrollments a little bit earlier this evening as well. We will probably fluctuate 1.5, 2 dozen kids over the next couple of years, but we're going to stay relatively stagnant, it looks like. So barring any significant construction projects with residential, we should be relatively flat. We get into those enrollment projections. We give you a 3-year look back and then what the projected, that shaded column looks like for next year, so you can see kind of what the overall looks like at each grade level. Keeping in mind that we also are responsible for those outplaced students. So we want to show you the board that. We also show you each year the elementary class sizes over the last 3 years and then what is projected to be this coming year. And we do that by building, and so you can get a sense of each building, but then also overall as an elementary, what our class sizes look like. So I think we're doing pretty healthy there. Our average class sizes are relatively low. We get into the specifics for each level. At the elementary level, you'll see that we're going down in a few sections in K1 and 2, as well as 4th grade. But then we're also going, in 5th grade, but then we're also going up in 4th grade. We have our 4 MTSS reductions. Those are programmatic. So I want to make sure that the board sees that there are some up and down because of enrollment, but there's also some up and down because of the programmatic decisions we've made. The PE reduction and the critical thinking reduction is a result of a lot of work by our ad team and our staff to look at consolidating our exploratory schedules and creating some efficiencies there. We get into that behavior facilitator is also a programmatic reduction. And then I wanted to point out for the elementary level, the social worker. we want to increase our social worker by 0.5 FTE. Right now, we have the IEP need for a 0.5 social worker at McDowell. However, we can't hire a 0.5 social worker. They're not, we've had one candidate in the last 14 months, and at a half-time salary without benefits, we can't do that. So we've had to employ a virtual contractor. In the past, and as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, when we went to a contract service, we'd actually get a person. A person would actually come to the school and be present and do the role. We've not had an in-person contractor for years, since COVID. They're virtual. And the cost of the virtual part-time social worker is almost double what we would pay a full-time person. So for purely financial reasons, I am recommending that we increase the FTE of our social worker at McDowell from 0.5 to 1.0. That would allow us to get a full-time social worker. They would be eligible for benefits and all those things for less than we are currently spending for a part-time virtual social worker. I would tell you that there is more than enough work across the district at the elementary level for a full-time social worker to be able to help us out. That other 0.5, we're not going to have someone sitting around doing nothing. There is plenty for us to have that person do to support our students directly. And for me to recommend to the board to continue to pay the cost that we're paying for a contract service does not make sense. It does not. We will actually save money comparatively to today by virtue of making this a full-time position. So that is one change to this plan that we've come to in recent weeks. So any questions about that specifically? Because I want to make sure that you flush that out if needed. Okay. Going to KIPLA, we have some programmatic changes there that we talked about. KIPLA is going to go back and be housed at Shields and at the middle school for the 3-5 and the 6-8 sections. However, I did want to point out that the Inspire group, that's the elementary group, did go down 1 FTE, and I want to point that out because that is not, and I want to make sure I'm very clear for those watching at home, that is not a choice of the board. That is an enrollment-based reduction. So we went from having 2 sections worth of elementary KIPLA students to today having 1 section worth of students at KIPLA when they go back to be housed at Shields. So I want to just point out that the board has not programmatically reduced 1 FTE at KIPLA, but through enrollment we need to reduce 1 FTE at KIPLA. Should those numbers change, again, just like everything else, we'll bring this back to the board when and if we get that hard count to justify that expense. We'd bring that back to the board for approval. Middle school. Middle school, you'll see that we have 3 areas of reduction with MTSS, the LRC director, and the instructional coach, and those were those programmatic changes, but for the most part they are flat, and we have a flat staffing pattern for the middle school then. When we get to the high school, you'll see that we have a total of 1 FTE, but it's actually 2 parts. It's 2/10 of art and 0.8 of CTE. So we did not have the registration for that. And then we have the MTSS reduction and the 2 counselors that were the programmatic reductions for a total of 4 FTE at the high school. I kind of put it all together here for you. You can see that we have the certified reduction of our certified staff from 380.93 to 356.23. Support staff, there are parts of that will come in April. So please know that the paraprofessionals and those kinds of things come in April, but we do know some of those things now in terms of the 12-month secretary at KIPLA, the nurse at KIPLA, those kinds of things. So that's included in here, as well as monitors and food service reductions that we've talked about. The administrative reduction, we do have 3 admins that will be reduced from the 24 that we currently have, so that you can see a total reduction of FTE of 34.08 FTE. Included with the minimum staffing plan is our conversation about differentials and stipends. Every year we go through a specific process with the association to solicit input from our members about what kind of clubs and athletics and activities we should run. We combine that with our own internal metrics to look at what we may need to provide. This year we had a handful of requests, a DECA sponsor, a high school set designer and set builder for our shows, an increase to the middle school cross country and middle school track and field differential, as well as then a KIPLA team leader, middle school chess team, assistant theater director, and then we looked at global cultures and art. And after looking at all of those things, we made the recommendation to reduce global cultures and art at the high school due to low enrollment, 4 or 5 participants. And I know those clubs are important to those 4 or 5 students, yet when we then reciprocally had DECA, which is exploding and has over 70 kids in it enrolled that participate on a regular basis, we needed to add support to that program. And so we're recommending the reduction of global cultures and art and the increase to DECA with an assistant sponsor. So when we put all of that together, we have the FTE impact and the financial impact there for you so that the board knows how this will all play in terms of the FTE and the dollars associated with those FTE. So remember, certified staff, we use 60. For our classified staff, we use 30. And then for our administrative reductions, we used actual dollar amounts for those certified staff for the administrative side. So you see we have that total reduction and then what the total savings would be. Questions? I want to remind the board again, should anything change, it will come back to this group for discussion and a vote will be from a recommendation from your administration. And then we'll be monitoring it on a weekly basis between now and the start of the school year so that we can be timely and responsive should anything change.
I think Board Member Kleisner said it best when he mentioned earlier, and this kind of falls in line with what we discussed earlier, but I want to thank administration for thoroughly going through this plan, and it's not easy for any of us. I think the fact that we're all speechless is indicative of that, but it is what it is, as they say. So, any further comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, at this time I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the minimum staffing plan for certified staff for 2025-2026 as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mankowski.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. The minimum staffing plan for 2025-2026 is approved. Thank you, Dr. Atkins. The 6th item of new business is the discussion of proposed fund balance policy. Dr. Bogan.
Yes, so one of the things we wanted to bring to the board tonight was the discussion of our current fund balance policy as well as options for the district moving forward. We really have tried as a department, as administration, to really look at every aspect of the budget. You know, we just heard the staffing plan, but what else can we look at? I know we've brought items, you know, for discussion to implement, and this was an area that we felt we could make some updates. Currently, our board policy sets out that we are to maintain a minimum of 45 days cash on hand, which is about 12.5% of our operating costs. We anticipate that at the end of the year, we'll have just over $9 million in fund balance. So we do anticipate falling just short of our current minimum policy. Previous direction, and I think previous policy, was if you get taxpayer dollars or if you've got revenue in a year, that money should be spent in that year. And one of the things that I think has been a challenge for the district that we see right now is that we haven't really been able to build a fund balance on which we can rely for those emerging issues. And so one of the things that I did is I looked at Kane County as well as some of the surrounding areas like DeKalb, Sycamore, the Huntleys, and reviewed what their fund balance policies are. And pretty unilaterally across the board, the minimum fund balance policy is about 25%. 2 districts do have their minimum set just higher at 30%, but it seems like that 25% is being set at the minimum, or 90 days cash on hand. And I think that does a couple of things. You know, it does provide some increased financial stability. I think there's also the potential there for the district to have an improved credit rating. Also, just some additional protection against revenue volatility. You know, this year we are anticipating, you know, prorated payments from the state for those mandated categoricals, which is going to negatively impact us, but also give us the ability for some more strategic long-term planning. And then I think it also, to some degree, also demonstrates fiscal responsibility to the public, being able to put a little bit away. With all of that being said, knowing where the district is currently and that we're going to fall short of our current policy, you know, the last 2 years, it was noted on our audit, right, that we are falling behind or falling below the current policy. And so one of the things I would want the board to know is that if we update the policy, we're not going to be able to get there overnight. We're not going to be able to have 90 days cash on hand at the end of this year or possibly at the end of next year. This is going to be a long-term goal that we need to move towards. 25% of this year's operating expenditures would be about $19.7 million. So that would effectively double our current fund balance. And so that, again, that's not something without making drastic changes that we would be able to achieve, but that would be one of my long-term goals for the district, is to move in this direction. And there's a couple different ways that we could do that. We could change the policy knowing that we're not going to be there, or we could put in possibly some gradual steps to get there. It really would depend on what your direction or what you see as.
I want to speak first. I'm a huge proponent of this. I know that previous boards felt that they had to set this policy and they've enacted it, but I think the theme of the community has been that we, when I say we, the Kaneland Board of Education, have been fiscally irresponsible for a long time, and I think this is a huge step in the right direction. I think part of being fiscally responsible is having, if I think back to my home budget and, you know, what we're doing at home in providing for the family, you always have something to support you in the event something goes crazy, our car breaks down, or you have a major medical expense. And while it's not the same, they're also similar in the sense that I think that's a big component to being fiscally responsible. I want to say, because I know that Dr. Lawler is not here tonight, and I know he has been for a long time a big proponent of what you mentioned earlier, in that we should spend every dollar that comes in. And if you're out there, Dr. Lawler, I know we've talked about it, looking at the camera. I know we've talked about it individually, you know, together, but I want to recognize the fact that I acknowledge that perspective in being fiscally responsible as well. However, given the situation we're in, and, you know, in the event, God forbid, we don't pass a referendum, I think that moving towards this is a step in the right direction of beginning a new perspective for Kaneland and a new vision, if you will, from a financial perspective. So that's my 2 cents on the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I completely piggyback that, and I think you know, obviously, you know, even with the referendum and some of these different things, a lot of this stuff is gonna be very forward, you know, facing and long term. So you're setting things up for, you know, 2, 3, 4 boards down the road, setting up for, you know, the class of, you know, 2040 or whatever the case may be, and having this, you know, additional funds. If we do pass this referendum and we get a lot of nice new shiny things and updated infrastructure and everything else like that, we need to make sure that there's a cash outlay that's gonna be able to do the preventative maintenances and have that schedule set up so we know, you know, we're gonna have the cash available when we do have to maintenance, you know, the track or, you know, the boilers or whatever the case may be. And I think it is, you know, and I understand Dr. Lawler's, you know, point too. It's like, if we have cash, let's put it into the schools, let's give it to the kids right now. But I think having a little bit of lag and a little bit more cash in reserve, you can take a step back and really think about what are we doing and make sure that we're making really sound decisions with that money. If it you know, goes back to a curriculum standpoint or whatever the case may be, as opposed to, hey, we got money, let's go. You know, I know that's how I spent my early 20s. It didn't work out well, you know. So to your point, there has to be that, you know, some of this long-term, you know, thought process about it too. And I like this direction personally.
And I do want to share, so in order to get to this point, there are short-term things that, you know, we will need to have discussions about. One of them you'll see coming up later this spring, right, is the budget. And so making sure, I know I've talked about it previously, but that our expenditures are not exceeding our revenues. So I guess what I'm preparing you for is, you know, don't expect a deficit budget for me if at all possible. I do know that our transportation and our O&M funds are going to be extremely difficult, especially knowing that in transportation we will be losing revenue due to those prorated mandated categoricals. So those would be 2 areas where I would say you may see still a deficit, just given, you know, what our expenditures have to be, right? We have to drive kids to school, we have to have buses, but also knowing that reduced revenue. So this is definitely a long-term plan. I think, you know, there is some fear like we're gonna put all this money away. It's not possible in the short term to be able to do that. So I do wanna really stress that.
So I think the plan would be then to come back in April with actual policy verbiage for the board to consider.
And I guess my only question, is the board more interested in making like a direct change to something like we're gonna go from 12.5 to 90 days knowing that we'll fall short? Or would the board prefer to see maybe a phased in approach to this, knowing that we still may fall short?
I say a phased approach.
Phased approach.
As opposed to having a fiscal shock.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because it's tough enough the way it is right now. Essentially hand to mouth, where having it phased in, it's going to be far less of a shock to the system. It's fairer to our students in the classroom, who in my opinion would be affected less than if it was, we got to get to that point right away. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Thank you. That was gonna just be my only add-on, was phased or not, but more of a guide of what you're looking at, what you're thinking at. So, excuse me, again, yeah, definitely the phase, so it's not just a one-shot thing, but also what does that look like for us? What does phase look like? So a little bit more details to that so we can understand that. I mean, we're on board, you know, with your thinking, and this, to Mr. Kleisner's point, you know, our goal is not just to have Band-Aids anymore, but to set up not only our students now, but our future students. We've heard our future students, you know, the students that'll be in high school and stuff like that speak today. And so we want to make sure that we, you know, are building a solid foundation for them. So definitely on board for this, but yeah, a little bit more understanding what that journey looks like for us, that would be helpful for me.
I would say take an opportunistic, when the opportunity presents itself, to put some aside for a reserve as the opportunity presents itself. And, or whenever grant funding, we could offset with grant funding other sources. Do we spend the grant funding first? Or
Yeah, to be clear, changing policy, it would set our new bar. And for the immediate future, we would not be hitting that bar. We just go into that with our eyes open.
Yep.
But through, strong fiscal practices and looking towards the future, trying to build up those reserves for the rainy day, and like, Dr. Bogan, improving our credit, improving a lot of things around this district. So we have to be prepared that we're not gonna hit that bar right away, but we would be looking to set that bar. And we can have Dr. Bogan bring back some, kind of a tiered approach in the first meeting in April for consideration, and then back at the end of April for vote, if that's what the board would prefer.
I appreciate it.
I'd just like to say that I have full faith that you'll be able to put together a comprehensive plan, because you've done really well so far, and I feel comfortable
I'm like, no
putting this in your
pressure,
hands.
it's okay.
But no, I
appreciate that.
To your point, you're doing really well, and so, for me, sitting in this chair, or whatever chair, I feel comfortable putting this in your hands, and that you'll come back with a good plan. Okay, further comments, questions? Okay, there's no action necessary tonight for the proposed fund balance policy. The seventh item of new business is the approval of the curriculum adoption for AP Macroeconomics. Dr. Rowling.
I'm gonna hand this one off to Dr. Horn.
Good evening. So microeconomics is a course that is offered through our social studies department. It is not offered on a yearly basis. We do have through our course request, we have a section of students eager to take this class. When social studies did the curriculum review, microeconomics was not part of that. So in order to have a curriculum tool for the students, our policy requires that we first review the tool, bring it forward for the board approval, and then have it on public display for a month for anybody in the public that wants to review it. So I have in front of me a copy of the Perfection Learning AMSCO edition of the Advanced Placement Microeconomics textbook. It is aligned to the College Board. It has been reviewed by the Advanced Placement KLC within the Social Studies Department. Social Studies is the department at the high school that offers the most advanced placement. Currently, we have AP Human Geography, AP Psychology, AP US History, as well as AP Government. This is the 5th class. We're looking to update the curriculum tools offered for it. This is the curriculum tool that is used throughout the Social Studies Department. So it is part of the series. All we're doing is just asking to add microeconomics part of it. The teachers have reported that they're happy with the alignment to what they see from the College Board. They're happy with the test prep embedded within it. They also like the idea that our students are getting a consistent tool when they're working with this college level rigorous stuff. So the simple request here is that we approve the addition of this aspect of the curriculum tool that's already being utilized by the department.
Does it come with supporting materials for students?
Correct. So it does come with, in addition to the textbook, there's an online component to it with various supporting things.
Additional resources?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And this is aligned towards the AP?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, when you do an AP adoption, there's a limited list you can actually go from, so this is on that list.
Textbook companies are very familiar with College Board and work to align. And our teachers have experience teaching advanced placement and are knowing how to use the College Board portal and when they're reviewing the curriculum tools.
Additional questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education, thank you, Dr. White.
Thanks.
I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education approves the purchasing of the Perfection Learning / AMSCO Advanced Placement Edition of Microeconomics.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Mankowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. The Perfection Learning and AMSCO Advanced Placement Edition of Microeconomics is approved. The eighth item of new business, excuse me.
Backing up on that, aren't we?
The eighth item of new business is the discussion of the Education Services Department reorganization. Dr. Rowling.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. This is an informational memo to let the board and the public know about the reorganization of some administrative positions within our Education Services Department. Currently, there are 2 directors, one for EC5, one for 612. We will be making an adjustment. Earlier in the personnel report, the board approved transitioning Dr. Horn from the Director of Ed Services 612 to Director of Teaching and Learning, where he will have oversight of the Ed Services Department. They also approved moving Ms. Garland from the Coordinator of Personalized Learning to the Coordinator of Student Supports, where she will oversee personalized learning. She'll oversee MTSS, behavior intervention, and essentially all things tier 2 and 3 for students. And then we will be seeking to post a position for the Coordinator of Curriculum Development that will work to update our curriculum, work on assessments, work to bring all those things together. And so this move is intended to take full advantage of the fact that we are a unit district. We have all of our kids from the time they walk in the door at 3 or 4 or 5 years old to the time they leave us at 17 or 18. So trying to streamline those processes and create a more cohesive experience.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, the coordinator for curriculum development, it's going to be, who's the ideal candidate?
Well, we will post for,
What are the qualifications?
well, it would be an administrative position, so they would have to have the PEL. With the administrative, we would seek somebody preferably that had building administration experience. Somebody with, we're going to post as elementary experience preferred, simply because Dr. Horn has had most of his experience at the high school level. But generally what we're looking for is someone that is well-versed in curriculum development, well-versed in the standards, how to implement those standards, well-versed in using assessment data to drive curricular change. So we would be looking for someone with those experiences.
Okay. And it's primarily elementary curriculum, because curriculum, correct me if I'm wrong, middle school, high school tends to be subject driven well, departmentally driven to a large extent.
To some degree, I think though, we want to ensure that we have a K-12 scaffolded curriculum, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
it's not hands-off.
No,
I think that the process looks a little different at our secondary because, I mean, because of the unique fact we only have one middle school and one high school. But this person would work with Dr. Horn to really impact curriculum K-12. Right now, a lot of the focus is on elementary, as we've talked about in previous meetings. But it would be a K-12 position.
And the person would necessarily be versed in special ed curriculum?
They would have a background in that. I think that, I mean, all administrators should. Really what I would envision is including, as we do curriculum development, including our special ed department in those conversations. Right, so they're working together rather than on an island.
Okay, but we're not talking us developing our curriculum itself. Shouldn't the best use of our time and resources for that person be evaluating curricula that's already functioning and working well?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things when you talk about curriculum I think when, like what Dr. Horn just did, you know, we purchased a textbook, right? Or what we're doing right now with math is we are buying a curriculum materials package that is then paired up with your standards, your pacing guide, and all of those. So it's really an ecosystem there, and they need to be having their fingers in all of that, right? But if you're asking me, will we be buying?
I'm asking, are we going to look at existing curricula either here or elsewhere that works and works well?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Look, education, you beg, borrow, and steal everything you can get,
Sure,
right? It's,
understood.
We're not competing with these other schools,
No.
so absolutely, we're not starting from zero.
So this person wouldn't necessarily be developing ab initio. It would be a large part evaluating what's already out there.
Yeah.
I think the perception to some extent is that that's what we have now. It kind of feels like we have like, oh, you have all these resources and we develop the curriculum in-house.
Right, no, we're working to, you know, as we've talked, especially I think math is gonna be the big kickoff, where we have an all-new materials package. We're aligning that with then the standards, our pacing guides, you know, the user guide essentially, right? We talked about like the crosswalk concept, so that teachers are able to grab that, use it effectively. And then evaluate how that's going so that we tweak on an as-needed basis.
Right. And we will, as we develop this, we will communicate to parents.
Yep.
So that those parents who wish to support their learner will have the curriculum, a curriculum, and supporting resources to assist their student in their learning.
We've already launched some parent resources. We're actually going to go through it with the CAC in our meeting, which is, I believe, next week. So we'll go through that and see what they find is working and what's not. And I also think we're going to continue to work on how do we communicate, especially with our elementary parents, when the kids really still want you to help, you know. But how they can help support that learning through. And as you bring in new materials, a lot of times the newer ones have online portals. You know, we even talked about with economics, right? They have online portals where you can kind of get on there with your student and do that work.
And so the coordinator will, okay.
Yeah, we're really trying to open the door and break down the wall of school and make it easier for parents to participate.
Yeah.
The other thing, you know, I want to point out too, I know it's talking about we're going seeking this coordinator position. From a budgetary standpoint, this is net neutral. There is no, we're not adding any salary to the existing budget. So just want to clarify that aspect of it too financially.
Yes, it is net neutral. And again, depending on the experience of the person, we could actually have a slight reduction.
Yeah. Well, we're not creating
No,
a new position.
This is not we are not creating a position. We are taking one and moving it over. And so the Ed Services Department will continue to be a 3 administrative department.
Perfect.
We're just realigning those responsibilities.
Okay. Comments, questions? No? Hearing none, thank you, Dr. Rowland. There's no action necessary for the discussion of Education Services Department reorganization. The 9th item of new business is the approval of release of closed session audio recording from August 26, 2024. Dr. Rowling.
Yeah, so based on the request of the Office of the Attorney General of Illinois, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the release of the audio recording from the closed session portion of the board meeting on August 26, 2024 that relates to the potential litigation against the Village of Sugar Grove. This request was made in the determination letter from the Office of the Attorney General in response to the complaint made by Jennifer Conan regarding the validity of the matter that to be held in closed session. So I know we've discussed this challenge at the board table before. We did get the letter from the Office of the Attorney General who is requesting that we do post that audio.
Just as a matter of clarification, we were instructed by our current counsel at the time that we were we
That-
were advised to go into closed
That
session
is-
to discuss these matters.
That is correct.
Prior to us entering.
That is correct.
So
Yep.
it wasn't a board initiative. We sought legal support in making that decision.
Legal counsel.
Legal counsel, yeah, thank you. Okay, any further questions, comments? Nope. At this time, I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the release of audio recording for a closed session portion of the board meeting on 8/26/2024 that pertains to the matter of potential litigation against Village of Sugar Grove.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please, sorry. Forgive me, Julie.
Mr. Cook?
Aye.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Mankowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner?
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. The release of audio recording for the closed session portion of the board meeting on 8/26/2024 that pertains to the matter of potential litigation against the Village of Sugar Grove is approved. It is now time for the superintendent/board report. Dr. Rowley.
Yeah, so I have a few things. Our Ed Services Department will be hosting a virtual IER parent meeting at 5:30 on Thursday, March 20th. The link is available on the district website. I would encourage community members to attend. The Referendum Planning Committee will be hosting the final in-person town hall meeting on March 12th at 7 p.m. at the Elburn Town Hall Building. High school tours are scheduled from 5 to 7 on Tuesday, March 11th, which is tomorrow, and Monday, March 17th. Tours will also occur from 9 to 11 on Saturday, March 29th. Tours will begin at the Kaneland High School Library. Finally, there's one more virtual town hall scheduled for 6 p.m. on Monday, March 24th. That link is available on the website. And in addition, that I received word recently, as recent as about 5 o'clock today, that our SPEAK, which is our support personnel union, has also voted unanimously to endorse the referendum. So we'll add that to the list of endorsements. State Superintendent Dr. Tony Sanders will be visiting Kaneland High School tomorrow, March 11th. He will be visiting a variety of classrooms, including the Crier, Graphics, Engineering and Production, Choir, and the Fox Valley Career Center. We're excited to host this visit and show off many great things that are happening here at Kaneland. Kaneland DECA students achieved great success at the state finals, returning home with 3 medals. Congratulations to our seniors, Carly Feilich and Audrey Walker, who placed 7th in the state in the travel and tourism category. I'm gonna have to have my wife get in touch with them and start planning summer breaks. Additionally, Audrey earned a medal for her outstanding performance, placing 2nd in the hospitality and tourism exam, surpassing over 100 other students.
Wow.
Furthermore, Kaneland received the Illinois DECA Superstar status recognition for increasing chapter membership by over 20%. Congrats to our boys basketball team for winning the regional title against Wheaton Academy on Friday, February 28th, and then following it up with a sectional win last Friday against Crystal Lake South. However, I did receive word that their run is over. They had a pretty tough team this evening, but really still proud of those boys. They had a great season, a lot of fun to watch. And then congrats to our girls wrestling team that earned a 3rd place team trophy on March 1st for the state. Further congratulations to senior Brooklyn Schaefer for her 4th place finish, and sophomore Angelina Gochis for winning her 2nd straight championship in a dominating fashion. And if you know anything about wrestling, Angelina wrestled 4 matches downstate. She won 3 of them by tech fall, which means after you're winning by 15, they just call it. So it was probably one of the most dominating performances in that tournament. So I actually had the opportunity to go down and watch them on that Friday wrestle. It was a lot of fun. And then I was watching the semifinals on my phone at my kid's basketball game. Pretty sure the parents think I'm insane now. If you're watching and you're on my kid's team, I'm not insane. So that concludes my report. A lot of good things to celebrate here.
Dr. Bogan,
I don't have anything this evening.
anything from the board?
Yeah, I just wanted, pertaining to the boilers and stuff, I just had a question. I thought they were gonna look at and review all the boilers at all the different schools. Is there a possibility that we can find out where they stand, since that wasn't like?
Yeah, sure. And I want to clarify, there is, so at Shields and Stewart, there is in the plan from the architects in the referendum plan to replace the Univent boxes in those rooms, but we can definitely have them do a mechanical evaluation of the other boilers. just for peace of mind.
Yeah, I just.
We had them focus on the high school largely because of, time constraints, wanting to get that second opinion before the referendum. And obviously the conditions building, but we can definitely have them do that.
Appropriately so, that would probably fall under topics for future agendas, so there's one. Any other topics for future agendas? No? Okay. Public comment? Nothing? Okay. Is there anything that would like to be said from our large crowd? Okay. Hearing none, the Board of Education is scheduled for a closed session to discuss Illinois Open Meetings Act, Section 2C1, where there will be no action taken following the session. Therefore, after the vote to go into closed session, the recording of tonight's meeting will be concluded. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss Illinois Open Meetings Act 2C1 at 7:47 p.m.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mr. Kleisner.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mr. Cook.
Aye.
Mr. McCauley.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye. Okay, we will now proceed into closed session.